ADEC's Smart Start program offers first-time practice owners their deepest discounts on equipment and furniture for 2 years, plus other savings and complimentary services. Ask your ADEC rep for details and start smart with ADEC. Join Doctors Savanah Craig and Ronnetta Sartor as we navigate life beyond graduation. Real conversations about forging our own paths in our early years in our careers. There's a reason it's called practicing dentistry. All right, welcome back to another episode of Beyond Graduation. I am Savanah Craig, and with me as always,
I'm Ronnetta Sartor.
We are so happy to be back. We were literally just chatting and catching up, and we were like, we should just press record because otherwise we'll hash this out on our own and miss the whole point. So we're kind of just talking about the different ways to practice, group practice, solo practice, different treatment philosophies, different, patient population. It's all there. So the question I posed to Ronnetta was, we're both CE junkies. We love to learn. And there can be this push, or I feel like there's a big community of people who really love these complete care continuums, Pankey, Dawson, Coyce, Spear. And I think there's been this, it feels like to me, a big push of like full mouth rehabs and reconstructions. And is that the only way to do dentistry? And sometimes it feels like social media and things, we look down on like the bread and butter dentist or fee for service versus insurance and all of these things. And is one right or wrong, I guess, did that kind of sum up where we were were starting?
It did. I think it's lots of things. I think the initial question that was posed was, solo practice versus group practice.
Yeah.
And then from there, we started talking about, okay, well, even in that, whether you're solo or in a group practice, how do you practice? And I think when I was in residency, we joke all the time about, like, I went on the most interviews probably in the history of interviews, but I think part of it is I was really trying to discover what type of dentistry I wanted to practice, and whether it was me being in the office by myself or me being in a similar environment to residency, which would reflect like group practice. And in your words, like you said, whether it was me doing more complete care dentistry, and was I not so much ready, but like, was I at a place in my career where that made sense? Or did I need to go someplace where it's like, okay, we're going to do, this person just wants this done. We're only going to focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you summed it up really well. But I guess now we can talk about it. We've had similar but different experiences post residency.
Mm-hmm.
I finished residency and went into group practice, and then from group practice, pretty much now I'm a solo doctor, so I kind of know how both of those things feel. And then you kind of know all about the group aspect of it for right now. So what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think the big thing that brought this to my mind, shout out to our friend Tara and Jonathan Miller. They had a podcast episode about Tara's journey and talking about she was in big group practice and she feels like that's not what fills her cup and she wants a different type of practice, slower. She likes these big aesthetic cases and things like that. And when I was listening to the episode, I had this realization of, oh, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to, as Dr. Curtis always said, make pretty teeth prettier and have that attention to detail. I like running around and doing multiple things and crown prep here and extraction here, and it makes my day go faster. And I might change my mind in 5 years, but right now I really like that. And the idea of sitting down to do intricate smile design and all of these things doesn't interest me. And it was this realization of, and that's okay. And there's going to be patients that want what she does. And there's going to be patients that want what I do. And there's going to be patients that want what you do. But I feel like sometimes there's this thing, if you're not doing huge cases and full mouth rehabs, and if you didn't do X, Y, Z, CE, then you're a bad dentist. And that's like a social media thing and a me thing too.
Well, no, I think you bring up a very valid point. Like every patient that comes into your office does not want complete care dentistry. And it's not to say anything bad about those patients. It's just that we're all in different phases of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so lots of things go into play. Like, do they have the time? We live in a crazy world where I know all of the time I have patients that I'm asking, what's the obstacle that's getting in the way of us making your your oral health a priority? And time is the issue because they can't take the time off from work. So I think there's a place for both sides, like
Totally.
there are lots of patients that will come in and say, I know I've got XYZ going on. I want to see about having it all fixed because I know that the mouth is connected to the body and I want to be healthy overall.
Totally.
So I don't think it has to be, I definitely don't think that it makes you a bad dentist if you don't do those things, because I know you well enough to know that you're educating your patients on it. And if right now is not the time, or they don't have the finances, or fear is what's stopping them, I know that you're having that conversation with them.
Totally. And there are times where there are patients who need a full mouth rehab and they need a lot of work. And I'm happy to get them in the hands of the person who can do it and do it right. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Or I had a patient just the other day who, for so many reasons, traditional dentures are going to be a nightmare for them. And I told them, I can do dentures and I will do them to the best of my ability, but it's not going to be great. I think you are someone who really would benefit from implant supported all on X or something, just with the structure of your bone and gag reflex and these different things. And so I was like, I'm not the person for you, and that's not the type of dentistry I do or I want to do, but I'm not going to give you like a crappy option because you're in my chair. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But I
So,
think that's you doing complete care dentistry, even if you're not the one to deliver it.
yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, even if you're not the one to deliver it, because if you hadn't had that discussion with a patient and they just go down the street to someone that's going to give them dentures, they would
Yeah.
know, well, my last dentist said that for all of these reasons, I may not be a good candidate. What do you think?
That's a really good point.
And believe it or not, patients do that. Even if
Yeah.
they go someplace else, they're like, my past dentist, she said that. And then if they go down the road and that person's like, oh no, it'll all be fine, don't worry about it, more than likely that patient might come back to you,
Yeah.
to be like, it's not so much what you say, it's how you say it and how you made the patient feel. I'm sure
Totally.
that your patient felt seen, and you, even though it's a more expensive option, you just saying, okay, I think that this might not be a good option for you, this is what I think you'd be most happy with. And yeah, so I think that's a realization. It took me a while to realize that too, because yeah, early on when I was in group practice, it was a practice that took lots of insurance, so the days were a whirlwind. And I tried my best to create as much opportunity to spend as much time as I could with each patient without making the schedule fall behind. But now being in a solo practice that's essentially fee for service, I've got more time, I
Mm-hmm.
would say, than I did in the office that took a lot of insurance, to just sit and form those relationships with patients. More so if I'm telling the patient that something's not going to work, we have, I think, more rapport than I maybe had with some of the other patients.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say more rapport. I think that's not true. But I would say it allows more time to develop deeper trust,
Sure.
if that makes sense.
Totally. Totally. And I think there's always going to be a difference with insurance driven practices and these things. And I think this is maybe another hot topic of social media being like, well, if you accept insurance, you're a bad dentist because you have to do these right. And people, we can feel how we feel about dental insurance and what it does, and people don't understand that it's a coupon and blah, blah, blah. But they still deserve good care and faster or whatever you got to do the insurance thing, or even to think about like Medicaid and stuff. So the one office that my boss owns took Medicaid and insurance, and people were so grateful to feel like they weren't treated differently because of their insurance, where some of these state insurance policies, because of the reimbursements, that offices that tend to be Medicaid heavy can have a certain feel and work. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I still think those people deserve a pretty office and a nice team and good dental care. There's not a perfect system. And so I think this idea that if you accept insurance, you're like doing crap work is unfortunate. And also there are times where patients want Instagram veneers, and I'm like, with your insurance fees, we cannot hire a ceramicist. You know, like both and. You deserve great dentistry. There are also limitations to what I can deliver at this cost. What are your thoughts on all that? Because you were heavy insurance in your associateship, and then
we talked about this before, because it's like the internet, man. The internet may say that my office is not fee for service, right? Yeah. We've talked about that before, because like we're outer network. That might be the better term, with all insurances, but we still
versus an in-network
will file on the patient's behalf, and even doing so, there is a lot that goes into play with, just trying to advocate for our patients and have insurance pay for what they say they will pay for.
Totally.
So across the board, it's a headache.
And we're not getting away from it no matter what.
But it's just like, health insurance, right? If we go to the doctor, we want our insurance to pay for what they say they'll pay for. And I think, in having complete care, dentistry is also having a conversation with the patient that, your insurance is a contract between you and your insurance company. We're doing the best that we can to help be the middle person to help navigate for them to pay what they say they'll pay. But in addition to that, dental insurance is like a coupon. More than anything, it's not like health insurance. It's, I'm giving you this coupon and you only could use it for X amount of dollars, and you can only, if you need a crown, this coupon is only good for 50% of what the crown is. And, it's
a coupon with many stipulations.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. So I think, the bigger overall conversation is, how do we make dentistry accessible for the patients that don't have the time, don't have the money, or are really strapped and have an issue with dental anxiety, because all those things are really real. And I think how, as dentists, we navigate those three things will dictate how we make our patients feel. And to me, how you navigate those determines what type of dentist you are. I mean, the clinical aspect of it does make sense to you. You've got to be able to use your hands and do it in a good way. And maybe in 5 years I'll feel differently. But if I'm doing my best to help my patients in those three areas, I can sleep well at night. Let's say 4, because I don't want, one of my professors in dental school would say, you don't want your crown prep to look like gum on a on a lollipop stick. So no, we don't want to do dentistry like that. So yes, doing it at the highest clinical level that we know how to.
Absolutely. And Yeah, I think that's such a good point because the teeth sometimes are the easy part, but it's navigating all of those other pieces. Yeah, because sometimes there's really only so many options I can do for your tooth, to be to be
Mm-hmm.
totally frank. And it's just the conversation about how do we get there and what that looks like and what's reasonable with all those other resources. I always tell people we've all only got so many hours in a day, so much money in the bank, so much time we're willing to spend sitting here. So how can we make this? We're going to compromise somewhere, and I can't figure that out for you on what you're willing to compromise on. You know, in a perfect world, we just wouldn't have to, but
I know. One of the things I will say that I miss about group practice is just being able to like pop next door and be like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Or asking an assistant to call the other doctor over in real time while the patient's there to be like, can you look at this? What do you think? But it just kind of helps, like being solo now. I still have those things, just not in real time in the
yeah,
office.
yeah.
Because if it's something really, you and I have our little text chain, and I've got lots of mentors and friends that I'll ask questions to and just talk about cases and study clubs and stuff. So,
You definitely have to have your people because it could very lonely out here and very
mhm.
hard. And I say that all the time. I'm so glad I can just turn my chair and look at my coworker and be like, "Was that great? Was that me or like that was weird, right? Or do you
Mhm.
see this? Or I didn't feel comfortable doing this. Would you?" And then when we agree, it's like, okay, all right, I did the right thing. Or I've had sometimes, especially in the beginning, I came out of residency and I think you have a little like want to be a cowboy a little bit more because we could in residency. I had backup, I had hospital malpractice. And a lot of times in residency, we were kind of the end of the line.
Mhm.
So I think we did some more, not risky, but we pushed the limit a little bit more. So when I
Mhm.
first came out, I was like, I can do that. And the other day there was just something, and I was like, well, I did this once in residency. And one of my coworkers was like, do not
No.
refer to the surgeon. We
Mhm.
don't need to be doing that anymore. And I was like, thank you for.
So my favorite line became, at early on I was like, okay, I know I can do it, but should I do
Yeah.
it? Like, do I want to do it? It's nice to
Absolutely.
know that you can if you
Yes.
needed to, but
Mm-hmm.
if you have resources so you don't need to,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
That's
use your
the
resources.
wisdom of a few years of practice.
Oh yeah.
I don't need to be a part of that.
So guys, we want to hear from you. Tell us, group practice or solo practice?
Yes.
Or something similar in between, because there's so many different ways to practice. And then we talked about so many different things. So in addition to that, like complete care dentistry, or more aesthetic type dentistry, or what's your jam? Let us know what you're into and what fills your cup.
Absolutely. Until next time.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Beyond Graduation. If you enjoyed this week's episode, be sure to share it with a friend. Connect with us on social media at Savanah Craig DDS and at Dr_Sartor. And remember, you are not alone on this journey.
ADEC certified pre-owned equipment is a sustainable, affordable choice that makes genuine ADEC equipment available to every doctor. Each package is sold on a first-come, first-served basis. So, if you see one you like, contact your dealer. For more information, go to www.adec.com/find a dealer. Thank you for listening to Beyond Graduation, brought to you by Ignite DDS and Future Dentists. This episode was sponsored by Ignite DDS Coaching. We build self-determined futures. For more information, please reach out to the Ignite DDS team.